Hello. Oh, it's a very huge crowd. We didn't expect this. I'm Luka. I'm a backend developer, Python mainly, and
Yeah, hi, I'm Nina, good old user experience and user interface designer, and this is my first ever PyCon, and I'm such a nervous wreck, and I will probably start to cry somewhere in between, so please excuse me. We work in Reversing Labs, which is a cybersecurity company founded some 16 years ago in Zagreb, Croatia, but we also have offices in Boston, USA, and we are really proud to be able to say that we built and are maintaining world's largest malware database. As you can imagine, 16 years of docs, and we work with large number of files, and reports generated by our static analysis engine produce a massive amount of that data. And beyond storing and retrieving that same amount of data efficiently, we also need to shape it and summarize it in a way that will allow our end users to intuitively understand the state of their software and which next steps they should take to protect it even better. But today we won't bother you too much about cybersecurity unless you want us to, then come find us at the bar or somewhere, yeah. We will talk about how good user experience and bad one even more can shape the design of your APIs, query optimizations, and stuff like that. But first of all, what is user experience? I can see that all of you in the audience are young professionals, and probably it's safe to assume that you are familiar with the definition of user experience. And we all are familiar with the friction points between user experience and the front end because it's almost natural for us to think in those terms. But on a more fundamental and deeper level, at its core, user experience is about understanding and maintaining complex system within a human context. So if I were placed in a cockpit of modern jet plane, my inability to perform well would neither bother me nor surprise me because I'm not a pilot and I do not expect for myself to be able to operate an aircraft. But as you noticed, in front of the Congress rooms are coffee machines, and I love to make myself a cup of hot macchiato. And if I'm unable to perform that operation within a few seconds or with a single button press, I would be fuming. I would be really, really frustrated because I expect from everyday objects to be intuitive. I expect a good design to guide me, not to confuse me. Are any of you familiar with this book? Yeah, cool, yeah, okay, that's great to know. Don Norman is like guru of user experience design, and I really recommend this book because it's easy to read, it's fun to read, and it's still really relevant even though it was written in 1988. There is a bunch of other examples of everyday objects that become frustrating for people, for users. For example, we have popularly called Norman's door with the handlebars that are clearly shaped to signalize that you need to pull them in order to open the door. And you stand in front of the door and you start pulling, but nothing happens. And then you see push sign, and you're a bit confused. It took a few seconds of your life, you know, it's not a great experience. And I know I would probably hesitate in front of this panel with the elevator buttons because I wouldn't be really sure which button to press to take me up and which button to take me down. So that's a bad experience in a nutshell. Good user face shouldn't make you think that hard about some action that should be really, really simple. And the principles in Don Norman's book can translate directly into the backend. Luka, I will tell you how in the UX and the everyday objects, but Luka will tell you how in the backend experience, BX, yeah. So first of all, you need to focus on your users and their needs. For example, a public transportation system places stops there where the people need them the most. And you have clear schedules and the ticket machine is easy to use. And for UX UI example, you have food delivery app, which allows users to reorder favorites to filter by dietary needs, and so on. So user is first, and backend?
Well, backend is what powers everything. And why does user experience matter in the backend? Greatest example, if you ever wrote any software, is that you can complicate things if you don't understand your users. Your users will use your software in the way they think it should be used. Usually, it's not the way you thought it should be used or why you created that software. So there's going to be a lot of interesting behaviors. If you write APIs, you assume that your user will follow simple steps. Log in, view, click, and do some actions. If you do that and it's not intuitive for a user, he will click multiple times on something that should be clicked only once or shouldn't be clicked at all, and that will break things on the backend. Either you will run out of resources, you will have multiple connections on the database, you will have poor response time because you have 20 requests when you should have only one. So what you need to do is you need to understand your user so that the API is not driven by code, but by what you are trying to solve for your user. Because at the end, we are making money from those users and we want them to enjoy using our product. If you put yourself as a backend developer and you think only about clear, concise code, you are missing the point. You should be putting your user first and then try to solve their problem, not write beautiful code. I mean, you will write beautiful code, but let's be real, it needs to work first. And that's really, really important. So the other thing is, your users are not the only users of your code. You need to be aware that user experience also includes your colleagues who's going to maintain your code, or if you write library, other developers. So those are two separate users, but you need to make sure that you think about both of those. So if you write code that works for your user, but it's messy, not clean, without comments and documentation, your colleagues will hate you and you will get fired. So don't do that. User experience also means developer experience. So please make sure that your next in line who's going to maintain your code is satisfied with your code. Also, that makes you happy because you will have friends at work, not enemies. So everything works. Yes.
Do you want to start? Okay. Affordances, signifiers, design elements should suggest their use. You have, I don't know, send button with a paper icon, a paper airplane icon, and standout color. It clearly suggests that you need to click it in order to send a message. And you all are sitting in chairs that are, you know, obviously for sitting. And if there are places for armrests, you know that you can put your arms to rest and sit a bit more comfortably. So that's about design that suggests use.
So back to the users. If you have very simple and clear design, that means that your product is easy to use. What that means on the backend is that you need to power that with enough data so that there's minimum interaction between user and what he wants to solve. Also, you don't want to send too much data, so it takes like 5 seconds to load a page. You need to be very, very aware of the amount of data you are sending, that it's enough for user interaction, but not too big, so it's slow. Why am I mentioning this? Because our product has huge amount of data, and we need to send huge amount of data to the user, and that's a problem. And that's really, you know, resource heavy, computation heavy, and it takes a long time to present it to the user. But our users expect it because they know that they want huge amount of data. So it's acceptable sometimes to have a bit slower response time if what you send has meaning. What does that do on the backend is when you have those kinds of functions, you need to be clear about the intention of your code. So back to your colleagues, you use clear endpoint names. So your front end and your mobile developers know exactly what is going on. If you are working with HTTP, use verbs. And please, get, put, patch, post, delete, everything, not get or post for everything. There are multiple verbs in HTTP, please use them and use them accordingly. So if you want to update something, that's put. If you want to create, post, and stuff like that. So that's very simple and intuitive because everybody in your team and everybody who uses your software as a developer will intuitively know what is going on. And it's easier to work across teams. Let's be real, nobody works alone. We always work with somebody else, and our users are other developers, other companies, and your end users. So everything needs to be clear and concise, and it should work without surprises. So if you use get but store something in the database, why? Why? So please.
Okay, constraints and mappings. I inserted, actually I tried to insert the USB cable on the wrong part, but that's a good example because you can insert a USB plug only in one way, so you prevent errors. And UX UI example is a phone number input field prevents only accept digits, so it prevents users to enter wrong characters.
Exactly. What you want to do for your user is to stop them from overthinking. That's what constraints and mappings are there for. Your user, you should always assume that your user is a bit dumber than you are, and you should plan accordingly. You don't want your users to overthink when they use your product because they will use it in a way that they think it should be used. Please don't do that. Make sure that it's clear and concise. If you want to input phone number, don't use those old style telephones and make them choose numbers. Make it normal field that inputs numbers. Validate accordingly. Validation is not only on front end. You should validate minimally on 3 steps: on front end, on back end, and on database. If you don't validate your data in the database, you will have invalid data. That's a given. There's no other way of saying it. You need to validate in the database because somebody will input something strange. That's a given. So if you are writing libraries, that means that each and every public function that your developer users will call needs to be clear, concise, and validate inputs. If you write something to database, you need to validate it on the database level and prepare data accordingly so you don't have surprises. Also, if you're doing REST or something like REST, you should always use clear, concise names and validation of user input and output. Why? You need to test your outputs because your outputs are contract between you and other developers. And that must be unbreakable law. So if you have output, it needs to be valid and tested. So that's basically what you want. You want no surprises. So constraints, mappings, clear, concise names, that's the way to go.
We'll keep it short, so just feedback.
Feedback. Well, feedback is how you know that you built something good. Your users will tell you. They'll tell you it's shit or it's good. Usually they are less vocal when it's good and more vocal when it doesn't work. And they are very, very, very loud when it doesn't work. Or it doesn't work the way they expected it to work. And you say, no, but it should be used like this. And they say, no. I will not use that product in that way. I want it to work like this. So you have conflict. So feedback, communication is the key. You need to work with your users, you need to understand them, and you need to make sure that there's clear communication between them. And of course, always assume there will be errors. That's a given. We are currently, 50 people here, all connected to a single Wi-Fi, and imagine one of us wants to watch a video. So that might mess up everybody else's experience of using the internet. So you should plan accordingly. You know that your user will have errors. You know that Wi-Fi will break. Your front end will stop working at some point because there's a lot of space between backend and front end. So please plan accordingly. Also, please don't use OK 200 and 200 OK, there's been an error. If you get 200 OK response, you expect everything went fine, not a tiny error message. Please try again. No, that's not good. That's surprising, and surprises are not good. So standardized and very, very clear error codes, naming, conventions, follow them. They are there for a reason. And
such a question. Yeah. So the design process contains 6 steps. In the first one, you need to understand your user. You need to learn about the problem, about the product actually first, the product's purpose, and you need to learn what else you need to learn? How to solve a problem before trying to. You need to understand the problem before trying to solve it, yeah. And in the second step, you use previous findings to define your research, to define your wants, needs, goals, journey maps, quantitative and qualitative research, and stuff like that. And then you can ideate, rough sketches, mock-ups, more brainstorming, more team communication, and so on. After that, you jump on 4th step, prototyping, and I mean Figma, high-fidelity prototypes, working prototypes, accessibility design, and so on. Then testing. Testing, I mean go back to your users and test it. Take their feedback. And only after those 5 steps are done, you can put your idea and your creation into effect. Without UX, it's a bit shorter process, and you always find yourself fixing errors. So the answer to the question, do you need a designer? Yeah, I think the answer is yes, because it's everyone's job, not just front-end team and design team. It's also, as Luka explained in detail, why is the backend team also need to understand the process of user experience. You need to ask yourself, firstly, are you solving the right problem, or you are making something just to look good?
And of course, why is UX very, very important on backend? Because you will interact with your users in a way that makes them happy. So if they are happy, that means that they will use your product, you will get paid, you will get promotion, you will go to PyCon Italy and have a good time. If they are not happy, if your product sucks, you'll get fired, you won't go to Bologna, and your life will be hell. So, but the most important part is communication. Like we said, if you don't understand your users, if you ignore half of your users and plan only for those who are paying for your product, and you ignore your colleagues, your developers, your mobile developers, and even the front-end guys, you will be less of a good developer and more of a pain. So user experience means all users, you, your colleagues, and the users of your application. So please, be gentle, be kind, and don't use, 200 OK error.
Oh, this is such generated.
Yeah, we had to put AI image. It's the age of AI. Without AI, we are,
Thank you. We brought few these cool T-shirts. I think there's 6 of them, and Luka said that 6 best questions for him will get a T-shirt.
So we have 5 questions already. So the first one. Do you think domain-driven design can improve collaboration between their user experience world and the backend world?
From our experience, definitely.
Yes, because if you understand your domain, you will be less inclined to make mistakes while implementing. So domain, that's the primary focus of your problem solving. You need to understand what you are solving, what problem, and that's understanding the domain you are working in. If you don't understand it, you won't be fixing the correct problem, so you're working in vain. So yes, that's a great question. Here's a shirt.
Okay, maybe after. So, any suggestion how to deal with company directors that only think about backend performance and care about user experience only when the client complains?
That's okay. Let us curse in silence, because we need to be very gentle about words and stuff. So okay, I'm calm now. Great question. Here's a shirt. You can come here. Yes. We will be gentle. You need to show by example. Let's put it like that. If you use yourself as an example how to collaborate and how to define that user experience and everything needs to be put first, and do it by example, it will follow, because it will be easier for everybody to work, and people will naturally start following you, and there will be no friction. But you can also be vocal about it and say, we have poor performance because of bad UX. And that's why users are complaining. So please let me do my job, and users will stop complaining. And if that doesn't work, change the company.
But also research, numbers, experience, few teammates that can back you up and so on.
And always mention money.
Yeah, that's a great advice.
So I want to learn more about this as a backend developer. Can you recommend a book or any other resources about this topic?
Okay. Except the design of everyday things, there is also Don't Make Me Think That Hard. It's another book. I forgot the author. You can Google it. Those 2 books are the Bible of user experience, but there also are so many different tutorials and educational videos that you can watch, short videos even, and basically it's just about psychology. If you learn few those principles, you can adapt really easily to the backend.
Also, since this is Python conference, I want to mention 2 books, Serious Python, and I think I forgot the other one. But why am I mentioning those books? Because they have a clear way of showing you how to write clear and concise and good software. I think Python Tricks is the other one, yes. Also, read code. Reading other people's code will make you a better developer, because if you can't understand other people's code, you won't be able to write your own code good. Because let's be real, you rarely write something from scratch. You use libraries, you use frameworks, and you use other people's code. And you inherit projects. When you come into a new company, the project is already there. So you need to understand that code. That makes for an easier, interaction between developers. So that's also a good resource.
I'm sorry, I was sick a few days ago.
A lot of questions. Do you have any user experience advice for solo hobbyist developers in contrast to larger scale corporate teams? Advice for solo hobbyist developers.
I have advice. Open source couple of projects or contribute somewhere, because that will make interaction between you and other people almost a daily occurrence, and you will get feedback faster, and you can then actually expand your knowledge, and you will learn how to interact with others. Interaction is crucial, so pick one of the open source projects, start contributing, and then you can actually, progress.
Do you think that you should closely work in pairs, meaning UX and backend devs hand in hand from the beginning of the project until the end? Does it make it easier for the UX designer to be familiar with coding?
Yes, I think it's... So these are all steps where everybody involved should be included from the beginning to the end. You as a developer, UX designer, your project manager who ordered that product, you need to interact with your users. You need to interact with quality assurance team. They need to understand what you are fixing so they can tell you, please don't do this, it will crash. So quality assurance also should be included here. Don't forget about them. People usually think that step 5 testing is QA. Right? No, QA should be at step 1. Also designers, also backend developers. It will be faster, trust me. If you start implementing on step 6, and this is the first time you ever saw your problem, it's going to be so slow and painful because you have no idea what you are actually trying to fix and what problem are you solving. Because you get, I don't know, Jira ticket, implement API. That's not the way to work. And designers, they can code now with AI.
But I do know to click on the right mouse button and click inspect elements and find image source. Yeah, I'm here.
And we have other 6 questions here, but I think we are out of time. But Nina and Luka will be here, of course.